theater is a lot to me. It means so much to me that I wouldn't even think of ever not doing it in some capacity.
Theater has been like a family to me. I don't have, a lot of family in the area, and I'm not very connected to family, so it's just refreshing to come in to a group and just really be brought in with, welcome and open arms, and you all share kind of the same quirky love for, making a fool out of yourself on stage. We all kind of just want to play, and it's like adult playtime. We all get to pretend, we get to kind of channel that inner energy of a child. We get to create.
I always feel bad for people who don't appreciate theater, because I'm like, wait, what do they do? Like, I don't understand. Not like, it is who I am.
It's an expression of your interpretation of the words that are on a page, and I feel like it is important that we spread that and make sure that we have that available to people, because there's nothing like live theater. There's nothing compares to it. Even you watching a movie, there's nothing that compares to it. And the arts are living and still thriving.
Just real quick, this is what pre-show is, what the audience will see when they come in. And then at some point we'll go to house to half. And you guys will already be sitting there.
Yep.
And then we'll go to house to black.
After the announcement.
Right, so there'll be announcements. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Now we have 3 audio clips, and the lights will slowly be coming up during the audio clips.
We are choosing plays not only because they excite us, but because we think they'll serve departments, students, faculty, other groups on campus. And then we're trying to outreach to those groups and get them to come, have a talk back after the show, visit their classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really trying to not only excite people on campus about seeing more theater, but also to help them see how theater connects with so many things that they do or that they may be studying right now. The Laramie Project is a beautiful, it's a very important show. It was written back, or first performed back in 2000. It was written really right in the aftermath of Matthew Shepard's beating and death out in Laramie, Wyoming in 1998. He was a 20-year-old college student, he was gay, and he was beaten and left for dead up in the hills outside of Laramie.
The victim of what many people say was a hate crime in Wyoming this morning has died. 21-year-old Matthew Shepard was found beaten and unconscious last week near the University of Wyoming. Shepard was gay, and while police say robbery was the primary motive for the attack, gay rights groups call it a hate crime.
A theater company went out right after the murder and just interviewed people in town. People that lived in town, the police, Matthew's parents, all sorts of folks. And they had about 250 hours of interviews or something like that. And from all of those eyewitness and firsthand interviews, they created this play. So it's an unusual piece, and it's very powerful.
And go to it to sit, to tell the story. So there's an awareness, there's a meta thing about it that is definitely in this play, so we can acknowledge that. So can we do that? Can we do it from the top and move into this? Everybody?
Yes.
The cast is really like an ensemble in the best sense. We all play a variety of parts. I think I'm playing like 6 different roles. The bulk of my lines go to a character named Marge, who is a 70-plus-year-old woman She has emphysema but still smokes, so that kind of gives you an idea of who she is as a person. She is Reggie Flutie's mother, so she has kind of a personal angle to the story. She tells it from the perspective of a mother, from the perspective of a longtime Laramie resident. So she, kind of offers a little bit of history in that sense, and definitely a little bit of comedic relief, which is needed at times.
Yes, is that right?
Sort of.
You're just
Come on, honey, get it right.
Reggie Flutie is a very important role in the show, and she played a very important role in Matthew Shepard's story because she is the police officer that was the first at the scene, and she had to untie Matthew from the fence.
How do you reach an entire state where there is some really deep-seated hostility toward gays?
I researched her recently, like where she is now 20 years later, and she's actually like a life coach, I think. She's doing some really cool things with her life, and I think this impacted her as a person.
So you want to do a piece on what's happening in Wyoming? Andy Paris is a part of the Tectonic Theater Group. He is one of the interviewers as far as the characters or the people in Laramie are concerned. The other person that I play a lot is Jedediah Schultz. He's lived in Laramie his whole life. And as we go through the show, he goes through a transition of pure ignorance and not knowing what he's saying. And it's coming from a genuine place. I don't think that it's coming from a malicious place. It's just coming from a space of this is the only life that he knows. And as he goes through the story, he starts to realize that, my whole life has been wrong, and and grows beyond that. And then lastly, talking and referring to the two perpetrators, both Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney, while they are both guilty of this crime, they both have two separate personalities in regard to this. Russell Henderson, at least to the naked eye, seems a little bit more remorseful in regard to what had happened, and Aaron McKinney is, not so remorseful. And it's a strong transition between the characters. So to play a character like an Andy Paris or a Jedediah Schultz, and then to play Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney, and you're like, wow.
There's just a lot of beautiful stuff going on in those last two moments. Right now it feels like you're on top of each other.
Yeah.
If you won't be, we're not going to let that persist. I think it's about seeing how much room there really is between you, because we've talked about isolating you and the lights going down on Nicholas, but of course it's the black box, so there is bleed.
I constantly meet people in this theater that say, this is my first live performance, my first live play. And we want to invite those people to come because I think they'll be amazed at how relevant it is, how dynamic, how exciting it is. And certainly for students, reading a play is a very different experience than seeing it on the stage. And that's certainly true with this play, because on the page, there's a lot of talk, but you don't necessarily know how it's going to happen. So to see that leap from, as we say, from the page to the stage is always a big leap. I think it's particularly dramatic with this play. So I just hope many, many people will come to see it.
How did you learn? What did we as a society do to teach you?
The discussion of this crime as a hate crime became very central because a lot of states at that time did not have hate crime legislation. Certainly Wyoming didn't. And there wasn't a national hate crime bill until like 2009 with President Obama.
This afternoon I signed into law the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act.
It was kind of a tipping point in national consciousness. I wish I could say that things changed so much for the better and stayed better, but I think we all know that right now there are a lot of threats to gay rights.
This story, while this was over 20 years ago, and we're going on almost 24 years ago, this is still completely relevant to today.
We actually had this discussion in rehearsal a couple weeks ago where you look at what unfolds in the Laramie Project and you're like, well, what has really changed? You know, we're now into 2022 and this is from 1998, and what has really changed?
Laramie is a town defined by an accident, a crime.
People need to talk about this stuff, and that's like I keep running lines with my mom and my boyfriend and other people, and are like, this show is so like, oh my gosh, I can't sit through it, whatever. But like, people need to see this. It's an important story. Like, no, it's not going to be a fun Friday night out, but they need to see it. And I think it also helps people to take a hard look at themselves, because I don't think that most people are like Erin McKinney and Russell Henderson, but I do think that a lot of people say that's not my problem, so I'm going to move on with my problems. And I think that it's all of our responsibility, and that's something that's discussed in the show as well, is that like, this happened in this town, this could happen anywhere.
In light of our current state of our world, I think it's very important to reflect back on the fragility of humanity, in a sense, and to really take a look at it and say, okay, this is something tragic that happened, and it did happen, yes, a long time ago now, but what are we going to do to make sure that, you know, in 2044, that we're not still telling the same story with the same progress?
The fact that some of the same issues seem to be reemerging in 2022 is a little shocking, or it should be. So that if people walk away from this realizing that, you know, gay rights are human rights, you know, that if one of us is oppressed, you know, none of us are, you know, are safe. So to stay active, to stay engaged, you know, to be a true ally, and not to get complacent.